Ed God and were changed by him. The world may not understand what's happening to you. They may say, "Where did he go? Why is she so distant?" But they don't see what God is doing. They don't see the new feathers growing. They don't see the fresh strength returning. They don't see the Spirit breathing life back into weary bones. Some of the greatest power ever revealed in a person's life begins in obscurity, in silence. Renewal is not loud. It is slow, sacred, and invisible until the day you soar again. So if you find yourself in a place of solitude emotionally, spiritually, or even physically, do not despair. That place may be the very altar where God is reshaping you, re-equipping you, and reviving you for the next season of your flight. Because when the eagle comes down from that mountain, it is not the same creature. It is stronger, sharper, ready once again for the skies. The eagle was not made for mediocrity. It was not fashioned to scratch in the dirt or flutter through the branches. No, the eagle was created for the heavens. With wings stretching wide and eyes sharp with purpose, it was born to command the skies. It does not ask permission to rise. It was born with the instinct to ascend. So many of us walk through life unaware that we were born with that same calling. We settle, we survive, we look down instead of up. But deep inside, there is a stirring, a divine whisper in the soul that says, there is more. Have you heard it in the quiet of the night when the world stills, when your heart aches for something you can't name? That's the call. That's the sound of destiny pressing against the walls of your routine life. There's a reason the eagle has been chosen as a symbol of nations, of strength, and of victory. It is because the eagle dares to dwell in the high places. It builds its nest on rocky cliffs and mountain ledges, where the air is thin and the winds are strong. It chooses the hard place, the lonely place, because that's where vision is clear and purpose becomes unmistakable. And when we respond to that call within, we too must be willing to climb not in pride, but in pursuit of a higher perspective. I remember a time early in my ministry when I was weary and uncertain. The road ahead looked foggy, and the noise of the world felt louder than the voice of God. I took a walk through a quiet field one evening, trying to pray, trying to listen. And there, against the golden sky, I saw an eagle circling high above the treetops, still, steady, untouchable by the chaos below. That image burned into my soul. It was as if God was saying, "Look up. This is what I made you for. Not the ground. Not the shadows, but the heights. There is something sacred about answering the upward call. It doesn't mean life gets easier. In fact, it may get harder. The eagle must fight gravity with every wing beat. But it was designed for resistance. So were you. Your spirit was built to press through the heaviness of this world, to seek truth when lies surround you, to rise in hope when despair pulls others down, to choose righteousness when compromise whispers its song. The eagle doesn't strive to be what it is. It simply obeys its nature. And you, too, were created in the image of a God who soars above time and space, a God who lifts the lowly and calls the weary to rise. That means this calling in you, that ache for more, that longing to see life from a higher place, is not imagination. It's not arrogance. It is invitation. You were never meant to live grounded in fear, chained by past mistakes, or blinded by what surrounds you. There is something in you that wants to rise, and that something, my friend, is the mark of the eagle, a sign that you were meant to live by faith, to walk in purpose, and to fly in the strength of the one who created you. When the dark clouds gather and the winds howl with fury, most creatures run for cover. They flee to burrows, nests, and shadows, hoping the storm will pass them by, but not the eagle. No, the eagle embraces the storm. It doesn't retreat. It doesn't hide. It spreads its wings, locks its gaze, and ascends into the very heart of the tempest. There is a divine lesson in that. Because life brings storms, doesn't it? We don't ask for them. We don't schedule them, but they come: the sudden loss of a loved one, the betrayal you never saw coming, the diagnosis that shakes your world, the failure that whispers you'll never rise again. These are storms of the soul, and when they come, we have a choice. We can run or we can rise. You see, the eagle uses the pressure of the storm, the same winds that strike fear in every other creature, to lift itself higher than it could ever go in calm skies. It doesn't fight the wind, it yields to it. And in that surrender, it finds elevation. That's the paradox of the eagle mindset. It teaches us that the storm is not just something to endure, it's something to use. I've seen people go through unimaginable pain and come out stronger, wiser, more radiant than before. How? Not by their own strength, but by the grace of God and the decision to rise. I remember visiting a woman years ago, a widow who had just lost her husband of 40 years. As I entered her modest home, I expected to find despair. But what I saw was peace, not the peace of someone untouched by pain, but the peace of someone who had chosen to fly into the storm with her eyes fixed on heaven. She said to me, "Billy, I hurt, but I know He's lifting me." That, my friend, is the eagle spirit. We often ask God to take away the storm, but sometimes His plan is to meet us in the storm, just as He met the disciples on the raging sea, walking on the waves, unshaken by what terrified them. And He says the same to you and me today. Do not be afraid. I am here. Rise with me. The enemy wants you to believe that the storm is your end. But God says it can be your beginning, your break through, your launching point, your awakening. The winds that try to break you can be the very winds that lift you to new heights, if you learn to spread your wings and trust the one who holds the skies. We are not called to a faith that only works when the sun is shining. We are called to a faith that shines brightest when the clouds roll in. It is in the storm that we discover what we truly believe and who we truly are. The eagle doesn't rise to escape the storm, it rises to gain a clearer view, to get above the noise and chaos, and to see things from a higher place. It teaches us that perspective changes everything. You may be in a storm right now. The thunder may be deafening. The winds may be fierce. But don't you give in to fear. Don't you fold your wings. You were made to rise. Lift your eyes to the hills. Your help comes from the Lord. You don't need to be stronger than the storm. You need to be anchored in the one who commands it. And when you rise not in your own strength, but by the Spirit of the living God, the world will look at your life and see something unexplainable, something supernatural. They'll see a soul that should have been broken, but instead is flying higher than ever before. There comes a time in the life of every eagle when its wings grow weary, its feathers become heavy, its beak dull, and its strength begins to fade. It can no longer soar with the same ease. It can no longer hunt with the same precision. And when that time comes, the eagle makes a decision not to surrender, not to give up, but to withdraw. It flies alone to a high and hidden place, a cleft in the rocks, far above the noise of the valley. There, in that solitary place, the eagle begins one of the most remarkable transformations in all of nature. It plucks out its old feathers, tears away its worn beak, and beats off its tired talons. It is a painful process, almost violent in its surrender. And for a time the eagle looks broken, weak, undone, but it is not dying, it is being renewed. Oh, how often God does the same with us. We are so quick to avoid solitude. We fill our days with noise, with movement, with distractions. We scroll and we rush and we talk, hoping to drown out the ache inside. But there are seasons, and if you walk with God long enough, you'll face one when He calls you away from the crowd, away from the accolades, away even from the good things, not to punish you, but to prepare you. I have felt that solitude myself. There were seasons in my ministry when the doors closed and the phone stopped ringing, when the applause faded and the direction seemed unclear. I remember once walking through the woods behind my home, crying out to God, "Have you left me?" And in that stillness I sensed His voice, not with thunder but with tenderness. "No, my son. I've brought you higher so I can speak to you without the noise. You see, the high places are often lonely places, but they are also holy places. Sometimes we mistake isolation for abandonment, but let me assure you, God never wastes a wilderness. When He calls you to the mountain, He's not casting you off, He's calling you deeper. He is stripping away what no longer serves you, the pride, the fear, the false strength, the habits that kept you grounded. He's not breaking you down, He's rebuilding you, and yes, it hurts. Renewal always does. Ask the eagle, ask Moses in the desert, ask David in the cave, ask Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. In those quiet, hidden places, away from every other voice, they encounter the eagle possesses a vision unlike any other bird. While most creatures see only what is near, the eagle's eyes can spot a rabbit moving in the grass from 5 miles away. It sees what others cannot. It is not distracted by what's immediate, it is locked in on what lies ahead. This ability to focus, to fix its gaze beyond the present moment, is what sets it apart, and it is what you and I must learn if we are to rise above the confusion and chaos of this world. We are surrounded by noise, by headlines that scream fear, by opinions that pull us left and right, by circumstances that cloud our path. The world wants us to react, to chase every flicker, to live short-sighted and small-minded. But the eagle teaches us to lift our eyes higher, to see not just with the eyes in our head, but with the eyes of the spirit, to look through the moment and into the eternal. When the eagle soars, it isn't looking down in fear. It is looking ahead with purpose. Its direction is guided by vision, so too must ours be. I've met people who were full of talent, full of potential, but they could never rise because their vision was too small. They lived only for the next paycheck, the next thrill, the next comfort. And they missed the bigger story God was writing. But I've also met men and women with humble means, quiet voices, but hearts that saw with clarity, people who could see revival in a dry church, who could see healing in a broken home, who could see hope where everyone else saw ruin. That's the eagle mindset. That's what it means to walk by faith and not by sight. You can't live like an eagle and keep your eyes in the dirt. There's a moment in the Gospels where Jesus looks over Jerusalem and weeps. Why? Because the people could not see what was right in front of them. They missed their hour of visitation. They were blinded by the immediate, the political, the traditional, and they failed to recognize the Messiah in their midst. Oh, how often we do the same. We are so fixated on what is urgent that we miss what is eternal. But when you ask God to give you eagle vision, spiritual vision, He begins to open your eyes. Suddenly, you're not just seeing problems, you're seeing purpose. You're not just looking at the storm, you're looking for the lesson. You're not stuck in the fog of now, you're flying in the light of what is to come. There have been moments in my own life when everything around me looked uncertain. I remember standing backstage before preaching to thousands, feeling a strange quiet in my spirit. I asked God, "Why do I feel so small?" And it was as if He whispered, "Because what you're doing is bigger than what you can see." You see, vision isn't always clear in the moment. Sometimes it's a flicker, a whisper, a nudge, but if you follow it, if you trust it, God will lead you to places your natural eyes could never have imagined. That's why we must pray daily, "Lord, open my eyes. Open my eyes to see beyond the pain, beyond the pressure, beyond the past. Give me the eyes of an eagle, focused, fearless, forward looking. Help me to see people not as they are, but as you created them to be. Help me to see this broken world not as something to avoid, but as a harvest waiting to be gathered." The eagle doesn't chase everything that moves. It waits, it watches, it knows what it's after, and when the time comes, it moves with power and precision. We need that same clarity, that same discipline. Because when you truly have vision, you stop wasting your energy on distractions. You stop following every opinion. You stop doubting who you are and why you're here. You start moving with direction, with faith, with purpose. And when you do, when your eyes are lifted, there's not a storm, not a shadow, not a single moment of darkness that can hold you down. There is a moment when the eagle, having been renewed in solitude, its vision sharpened, its strength restored, finally spreads its wings once more and soars. It doesn't flap frantically. It doesn't strain or strive. It catches the wind, and with majesty and ease, it rises into its purpose. That, my friend, is not just nature, that is a picture of destiny fulfilled. You and I were not created to drift through life, surviving day by day with no direction, no passion, no fire in our bones. We were made for purpose. There is something in you that the world needs. There is a call on your life that cannot be fulfilled by anyone else. But you will never walk in that calling by staying on the ground. You must rise. When you discover what God has placed in you, when you realize that your gifts, your scars, your story, even your pain, were not accidents but ingredients for your mission, everything changes. You stop living for applause. You stop living for comfort. You begin to live for impact. You begin to soar. I've stood on platforms and preached to millions, but let me tell you, it wasn't the crowd that gave me purpose. It was obedience, the quiet yes in the unseen places, the willingness to go when I was tired, to speak when I was afraid, to love when I didn't feel strong. That's what carried me. That's what taught me to soar. Purpose isn't about the size of your stage, it's about the weight of your assignment. And God gives wings to those who are willing to carry his heart. So many people wander through life not because they lack talent, but because they lack direction. They flap when they were meant to glide. They chase shadows instead of rising on substance. But the eagle mindset says, I was made for more. It doesn't settle, it doesn't compare. It knows the air it was designed to inhabit, and it goes there not in pride, but in obedience to its creator. There is a wind of purpose that blows from heaven. And when your life aligns with the will of God, when your desires bow to his plan, you will feel that wind beneath your wings. Doors will open that you could not force. Strength will rise that you did not muster. And peace will cover you, even in the middle of opposition, because you know this is where I'm meant to be. The eagle doesn't ask the other birds which way to fly. It knows, instinctively, spiritually, and if you listen closely, you'll hear that same voice within. That still, small voice that says, this is the way, walk in it. And when you do, when you follow, even with trembling steps, the sky opens. And you'll find yourself doing things you never thought possible, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. God did not create you to live beneath your potential. He didn't call you to blend in, to play small, to bury your talents in fear. He called you to rise, to fly, to live with such purpose that others are lifted just by watching you move. Purpose doesn't mean every day will be easy, but it does mean every day will be meaningful. The eagle soars not because the wind is always calm, but because it has learned how to ride the currents, even the turbulent ones. And in doing so, it fulfills the reason it was created. So lift your wings, child of God. The wind is waiting, so now you know, it's not about waiting on the right moment. It's not about having all the answers or waking up every day feeling ready. It's about one thing, deciding to get up. To fight, to keep moving forward when everything in you says turn back. Because every morning you rise, you're casting a vote for the life you want, for the legacy you're building, for the person you're becoming. You don't need the spotlight. You don't need the perfect plan. You need heart. You need grit. You need the courage to take one step, and then another, and then another. You get up even when it's hard. You get up even when you fail. You get up especially when no one else would. And once you're up, you get it done, not for applause, not for recognition, but because you made a promise to yourself that you would. Because discipline beats motivation. Because small steps turn into giant leaps. Because failure, when you face it with fire, becomes the very thing that shapes you. And most of all, because legacy isn't tomorrow. Legacy is built today. So whatever it is you're carrying, whatever it is you're chasing, whatever it is you've been running from, it's time to stop waiting. It's time to stand up, jet up, and get it done. Because your story's not finished yet, and the world is waiting to hear what happens next. 4